Okay. So just to introduce you guys, all the audiences are there, whoever are there present. Thank you very much for being there, guys. On Whoop, you guys have read a lot about LinkedIn. Many of those guys are complaining. Timeline पे हमेशा Whoop ही रहता है. What nonsense is this? But please bear with us. They're a young, very young startup by 40-year plus old guys. Okay. In total, we are carrying like around 52 years of experience in our pockets and in our hearts and in our minds. So, and thankfully, by the virtue of that, this solid, or I would say, we three guys have been calling it Power Panel. All of the Power Panelists have agreed to be part of our launch, and advance thanks to all of you guys. To start the quick introduction, it's Jamshed, who is, I would say, I have called him the engine, who in fact gave us confidence that move on. So Jamshed is a startup mentor right now. He's also a board of directors at Trent Hype Market. In past, he was managing director of Star Bazaar. He was heading consumer finance in Tata Capital. He has been a chief operating officer of the properties which we dream of being there, Taj Hotels, Resorts and Palaces. And of course, has been a chief executive officer of Tata Quality Management Services. Jamshed has got quite a unique trait which we picked up from his ex-colleagues. He is omnipresent. He is always ready to help others. To his colleagues, he used to go to their desks and help them out. And one more thing which he has, you guys can see it on his face right now. He has got a very contagious smile. So then Vikram is there. So Vikram has been my, I would say, my personal guide, coach when I was with Grofers. He's president strategy and new initiative as Grofers. In past, Vikram was heading Epic for AWS, as they call it, Amazon Internet Services. He was vice president India for Oracle, vice president India and South Asia in Intech, and general manager APAC for IBM. So a full techie, I would say. His unique traits are he sings beautifully. So be it songs or be it strategy, everything, whatever you say, starts from S. Vikram is there to make it sing. Yeah. BMR. So BMW nahi hai, it's BMR. Bobby Michael Raymond. Bobby, and we met sometime in CMPL in the month of February. He's director of strategic accounts in TraceOne. TraceOne, we all know they are like private label development firm. They are private label marketplace. They do a lot around private labels. And he was project manager long back with Trinity Consultants. His unique trait, he never shared with me, but I would say he has got a salt and pepper crown. And his eyes, they say he's very thoughtful. Yeah. Deepak, me and Deepak, whenever we met, Mr. Deepak Sangvi, he is managing director of Nuance Enterprises and IMA alumni. I would say he stepped in his in this venture. He started handling Nuance when he was 24 years old. And since then, I believe he has taken Nuance to leaps and bounds, to exports, to domestic, and he has, as I said, he has moved from pickle to pasta, and a lot more is happening around there. His unique trait for buyers, all the buyers present out there are, he's a seller, but you try negotiating with him. He is a far better negotiator than any of the buyers around. Okay. Kamaldeep Singh, or KD as we call him, President Food and FMCG from Future Group. He in past was heading again food division for group, and he was also senior manager agribusiness in Reliance Retail and brand manager with Wrigley's. Kamal has got a very unique trait of, he has got a very unique look, set wet look we call it, and his agility. You will never see Kamal sitting in his cabin or in his chair for more than 10 minutes. So he'll keep moving around, pushing around people, ye karo, wo karo, knowing their problems, etc. So that's how. Pankaj, another smiley. Okay, he has been with Marico for quite some time. Right now, he is heading new product development and 3PL operations with Marico. Within Marico itself, he was earlier heading value enhancement segment, and he is a Six Sigma black belt guy. Unique trait again, like Bobby, he is again a salt and pepper guy. With respect to his hairs, salt ज़्यादा है. And whenever I have come across him or his profiles, he has always been in denims, shirt per se. So I guess his denims are favorite. Pankaj can correct me if I'm wrong. Hi, Pedro. So this Pedro represent Damon. He is Director Global Sourcing and Procurement. And while I was reading his profile today, I came to know that he is a fellow agriculturist. That's really nice to know, Pedro. And which is also his trait. And he, by his profile, I can make out that he is again a very hard negotiator. Then, guys, we move to Mr. Sunil Cherry. I often refer him as IPO man. So, Rosari Biotech, you guys have must heard of recently that the IPO got oversubscribed by almost 80 odd times. Sunil ji is at that level, he's very responsive, he's very humble, and of course, he is the chemical man amongst this group. Vishal, what should I say? He has been a fellow colleague, I would say, and my industry colleague. He's right now working as Vice President and Group Category Head in Big Basket. He has been Head of Buying and Merchandising with ITC. And by his pictures, if I have to see what he has shared, he is on a spree of collecting awards. And I hope, Vishal, I'm right. Yeah. So this is what more or less a small and precise introduction of all of you guys have. And now I would like to hand it over to the engine of this panel, Mr. Jamshed Dabu. Yeah, JD, all yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and a very happy Independence Day. I think it's a pleasure and a privilege to be at this inaugural event for the world of own brands. And what is more interesting is that we've got a very diverse panel. It is very rare to have a panel where you have retail, where you have FMCG, where you have people who consult and design and develop for retail and FMCG, and then people who supply the core ingredients from which products are made. So thank you very much for this opportunity to coordinate this panel. And we look forward to a very exciting and a very diverse interaction in the next 45 minutes or so. So let me begin by posing the more fundamental question, and this is to all my retail colleagues first, and anyone can start, and which is, from a retailer's point of view, what is the primary driver or set of drivers which makes retailers get into own brands or private label? And that's a fundamental question from the point of view of what role does private label play in the scheme of things from a retailer's point of view. So any of my retailer friends can start.
Yeah, so I'll start. So it's always good to start with customer, because at the end of the day, we are in the business of serving customers in retail. If you look at it, India is a very diverse country, and we are also largely unbranded country, having a lot of products still not packed. So the first role that own brand or private label plays for us is to serve all needs of customer the way he or she wants it. Modern trade stands for safe products packed with barcode, with barcoding and capability, and also with a lot of understanding of the value that it provides to customer. So the first main reason of existence of own brands is that a retailer would not be able to meet all needs of customer if own brands do not exist. So that's fundamentally the first point. Second, today modern trade or organized trade has expanded from most premium catchments to pop strata of maybe 1 lakh. Again, customer needs are very, very diverse. So not only in categories where brands are not present, but also because of various unmet needs, own brands can help retailers serve customers better. And I can give you few examples. We call these own brands because we don't see them as labels. Look at Desi Atta company. So we have 60 variants of atta. Now, what do they cater to? One, they cater to regionality and products which are not available in modern trade. Secondly, they also cater to evolving customer. So is there a full range of atta for feasting and fasting? Is there full range of atta for health conscious consumers, which is available in all, let's say 400 cities which we were present? That's the second reason. Fundamentally, the first one is, we are still under distributed and under branded country. Second one is, our retailer knows what customer wants and he can, manufacture and distribute it and make it available. Third, if you look at the overall macro environment, most of FMCG technology was probably created many decades back. So you want to manufacture cornflakes, you want to manufacture, a great quality detergent liquid. Today, there is R&D capability and manufacturing capability, which is fairly, let's say democratically available. So now you can move up the value chain with the support network which has been created through third-party manufacturers, through R&D, which is available, through supply chain, which connects to more than 500, cities or maybe more than that. So these are reasons beyond, the obvious reasons like having better margin, having better play in category. But these are the reasons on the customer side and on the industry side for which own brands and private label exist beyond pure retailer strategy of profitability, and I would say differentiation also.
Thank you, Kama. That's really, really insightful. Bikram, would you like to give a go at it and give us your perspective from Grofers? I know Grofers pivots a lot of business on own brands.
Yeah, so I think Kamal started off well. He's talked about the fundamental reason that own brands, or at Grofers we call them Grofers brands (GB), they exist, which is about the customer. So it is about diversity for the customer. It is about addressing different segments of customers. Starting from the A1 segment right down to the Cs, where every customer has unique likes, tastes, price point, sensitivity, etc. So I think stepping away from there, if you look at it from a retailer's point of view, private labels, as the life cycle of a retailer evolves, I think the role of a private label changes or own brands changes, right? When you start the business at that point in time, can you jump in and say that, look, I'm going to be launching a private label, which is going to be 30, 40, 50% of my business? Maybe yes, but most times it doesn't happen like that. And then over a period of time, you launch yourself, you look at the customer gaps, you look at on your platform, what is it that customers are looking for, which perhaps may not be a need served by particular brands. And hence you say, okay, how do I fill this gap and, serve my customer better as well as profit, myself as well as, the manufacturer with whom we work to manufacture these products. So I think that life cycle and at what point, how you want to play yourself as, what mix you want to look at, I think that's critical for any retailer, right? You could over pivot yourself too early, or you could under pivot yourself too late. Thirdly, I think it's a healthy mix for both sides. National brands versus own brands. I think they complement each other. Because own brands or private label is a great way to get customers to enter category. So on our platform, so many times, we will look at certain, customer segments who are new to category. They've never tried a ketchup before on our platform. And the good part about e-commerce is you can do stuff real time, right?
True.
So, our ability to figure out that, okay, here's a segment that buys Kisan. They're a loyal Kisan. And as a retailer, my job is to ensure that when they come to my platform, I'm showing them Kisan. And here's a segment for Del Monte and etc., Maggie, etc. But here's a segment that has never bought ketchup on my platform before. Now, given technology, your ability to figure out why they haven't bought ketchup on your platform is significantly sharp. So it could be price, it could be they've never looked at ketchup as a category before, etc., etc. And within private labels, you could have opening price point products, you could have good, better, best as far as quality is concerned. And hence, I think it's a great way to actually get people to start trying the category, move into the category. So I think during that life cycle, the role of a private label pivots till you get to a sustainable or a mature stage where private labels should actually formulate a large percentage of your profits. So today at Grofers, for example, a significant chunk of our profits comes from our own brands. So that's my 2 cents to kick it off.
Oh, thank you, Vikram. A lot more than 2 cents, let me assure you that. Vishal, Big Basket is always, at least from a consumer point of view, I always see that they are very keen to build a strong value around the Big Basket brand. So even if you read the back of the pack, the assurances that they give us are very strong. So how does Big Basket look at own brands?
See, like Vikram rightly said, on a retailer's journey, the objective or the way you look at private label, it's very, very, it keeps changing. Like when a retailer starts looking at private label, they think of higher margin, better negotiation power and all that. But the way you evolve in a later stage and figure out what look at an objective of whatever you want to do. Now at Big Basket or our thought behind this is that whatever we do have to add value towards consumer, and it can't be only on a price parameter. So price is one which everyone looks at, and that's people have a mindset that private label have to be a cheaper or a similar or a better quality, but pricing wise it have to be somewhere below, or it is 20, so it is 18, something like that. A Big Basket, we don't look at like that. We never call private labels, we call them private brand, because when you call it label itself, you are somewhere telling that I am taking someone else's baby and putting my name on it. It's not. So the kind of R&D, the kind of research we try to do in creating even a single pack, it is as good as doing any FMCG company does, and the kind of team we have created for doing that. But today we look at private label not only for prices, we look at wherever the gaps are there, where FMCG or CPG or even non-food, large companies take a lot longer time to reach to reach or launch those kind of product. So you always try to see what consumers are looking, and our consumers are little in terms of premium, and they also look us at what extra we can provide them. So even whatever brands we build, our benchmark is never certain time it is because Indian brands are doing really, really well. We also look at what globe is doing well, and everyone have their own thesis. Like today we look at Trader's Joe. It's a fully private label store if we put it in another row. Same with their each and every product. When you touch them, when you see them, it's not price, it's about quality and it's about availability. You get only in Trader's Joe. And if you look at Costco today, now their Crickland and all those brands, what they do and premium, it's a totally different. So I personally believe that there is quite a big gap in our market today. If you see any international supermarket today and you go from a raw product to a processed product, you will find at least 50 different categories of 50 different kind of product which you can get at every level. But in India, that gap is very limited. You have raw, you have little process, you have full process. So that expansion part or filling those gaps have taken a lot of time. And it has also happened because our ecosystem, the way our today retail network works, and modern trade being still a smaller part of total overall almost $600-700 billion grocery market. So when you look at these things and you realize that today these large brands are there because supply chain was the only issue. Earlier, Kirana store used to carry 600, 800 SKUs. Then modern trade came in. It became 4,000, 5,000. A lot of brand came in. A lot of new internet. So only modern trade related products came in. Then e-commerce came. When e-commerce are there, now you have a huge space in terms of, and the means to fill those gaps. And when you are trying to build that, so you are finding consumer for each and every gap which you can identify, and consumer are ready to try today. Consumer are looking for different just than being only national brands or retail.
Thanks, Vishal. That is very insightful. Pedro, may I come to you to get an international perspective? Vishal did mention international supermarket chains. How is this whole own brand play being perceived internationally? What are the reasons and key drivers for retailers to get into own brands?
So,
And how are they going about it?
so agreeing with a lot of the ideas that were mentioned over here. So private label, basically, it's a world of differences around our world. So we find very underdeveloped markets that are starting their private label journeys. We find very mature markets where private label are central point to any kind of offer that a retailer has. So for us, and Damon, we work in different geographies around the world. So we can be developing private label programs for a market where consumers are not very open still to what is a private label. They do not understand it quite well. But then we are working in a market where everyone, every time that they go to a shopping store, to a store to do their retail shopping, they always buy a private label product. Not all the basket is private label, of course, but it's something that in a lot of different markets where we are operating, there's not one single consumer that in their shopping trips to a supermarket does not buy a private label product, which is a fundamental difference from what was happening 20 years ago, 15, depending on the geography, where a lot of the vast majority of consumers was only national brands driven. So private label, it's a key part of the retail strategy nowadays. And for us, I was saying private label, which is something that, to be honest, I do not like to say it, because we're not talking about labels, we're talking about brands. And private brands are basically what is the best route for a single identity that a retailer can have, okay? So a retailer is a set of experiences, is a store experience, is a bunch of products, it's people. But then in the end, everyone can have a Coca-Cola. Everyone can have that basic product that you can find in all stores. So private label is the key driver to generate differentiation, okay? To create differentiation between retailers, and then to generate loyalty, because again, retailers have a lot of consumer data. And when that power is unleashed and is analyzed, like everyone was mentioning previously, you can find the true value of private labels. You can find those niches. You can find those type of items that clearly resonate close to your consumers and make your company different from all the others in the landscape. So for us, international private label is super well established, and we're firmly believers, but that will be something that will reach out to every markets around the world, because again, we've been developing for over 50 years. We started in the white labels era, then we went to the no-name brands, then private labels or white labels, and now we're talking about brands. Brands are experiences, are values, are something that allows consumers to think of a specific company in a very unique way. And that's the power of private brands.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And it also plays to Vikram's point on life cycle. So it is the retailer's life cycle as well as the country's life cycle, which also determines strategy. So now at this point in time, I want to switch over to Pankaj and then to Deepak. Pankaj, in the boardrooms and conference rooms of FMCG companies, how is private label and private brands and own brands viewed by strong national players such as yours? What is your take on that?
So overall, we consider it to be an opportunity which is available to all, and it's a collaborative state as indicated earlier. So we also, if there's a private brand which is working well, we get to learn. Let's keep it very simple, plain on that. we've got something working, it works for us because the brand is already made by the people. It's not made by us. A lot of effort does go into it, and as Vishal also indicated, you need a team to nurture that brand. So that's what we stand for. So in terms of consumer expectations and stuff, we are never able to satisfy them. So there's room for everybody. I guess everybody on this panel, on this screen, even the attendees would understand that that's utopia. You know, nobody is ever going to satisfy the customer. So me myself, sometimes I buy something and then I go and buy something else. So that gap between buying this and buying something else, or repeatedly buying the same thing, that's what we actually focus on. So in terms of we are still learning. We've got few brands which people love, but we are still selfish and we would want most of our brands to be loved. So that's
So the big point you're making is that as an FMCG player, general increase in consumption is always a good story. And as an FMCG player, you cannot satisfy the entire gamut of consumption. And if someone else is satisfying it, it is getting people into the consumption cycle. And it's an opportunity. And I just want to link it up to that conversation we had around ketchup, wherein it says that, look, if there is a product and people have not entered, and private label or a private brand brings a customer into entry, tomorrow that same customer may try out your product, which is in that category. And it actually expands the basket. So I think that's a great perspective. So Deepak, coming to you, what is your take? Because you are a brand which has really established itself in the Indian market in a very unique way, and it's a very strong brand in certain categories, and those categories will also have private brand players edging around in that. So how do you all look at this?
Our aim again would be okay. Still with me or?
No, Deepak. I thought with Deepak. Sorry, but Pankaj, you can come in.
No, absolutely fine. I'll take it after Deepak. Deepak's anyways helped me launch a few together. So Deepak, over to you.
So how we look at is, for us, the journey was that we always were a very strong general trade brand, reaching to 5-6 lakh outlets and all. And as Bikram rightly said, that the country was going in a direction where a lot of modern trade was developing, and India was processing only 2 or 3% of food was processed and consumed. And these categories were being bursting, they were growing. And the first easiest way is to give a price point to the consumer, run offers so that the category gets expanded. At that point, as a company, we felt a unique challenge that if we run that kind of offers, our general trade network completely gets challenged, right? Because they see that we are running a brand which is something at a price, and the same thing is running at a very, very deep discount in modern trade. And you have to live with both the worlds at the same time. And also the modern trade was looking at growing at a private label, and if we would not supply, somebody else would. So how do we participate in both the strategy is what was the thought. And hence we continued our brand premiumization in the general trade. We never ran a lot of discounts. We never undervalued our brand by running it cheap, and yet participating in the growth of the categories through the private label in the modern trade. That is how we looked at as a company. And so even in the modern trade, through the private label, and in some places that our brand coexists, there's almost 50% plus market share that happens in that store because of both the brands, where we might get slightly less percentage on our own brand in that store because we do not run offers, and the remaining comes from the private label.
Okay, excellent. So that's a collaborative strategy you're talking about.
Yes, that's a collaborative strategy. Yeah.
To play both ends of the field. That's nice. Pankaj, sorry, you wanted to come in. Yeah, please.
I was about to say the same thing over there, that we also just go, whenever we visit the market, we just have a look at what's the consumer picking up, what Vishal said, and even what Bikram said. Whatever the consumer is picking up, there's something right about that product. So I was just adding that bit, that the learning continues. That's all. Like Deepak also mentioned, he's got a certain play, right? Only a certain amount of his turnover he allocates to us. Rest, all of his growth is coming from his own ideas, his own team members doing it. So that's what it is.
Now, I will add to it, Pankaj. In fact, during festive seasons, what Deepak does is he allocates his entire capacity to his own branch. So, उसमें आपकी और हमारी बारी नहीं आती.
He said it.
No, we have been expanding capacity, but the market is just growing.
So that's good news. That's very good news that the market is growing. Bobby, let me come to you. Being in the space where you are seeing this whole issue more strategically, and that's a question also which is asked, Saurabh. So I'm just answering that question too through Bobby. What do you see is the direction private brands will take over the next 4 to 5 years in the Indian context, Bobby? How do you see them evolve? Bobby, you're on mute, so maybe you should. Lovely.
Can you hear now?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I'll start off with the context of what we're seeing sort of globally, which will soon trend into the Indian market. So as a lot of panelists also mentioned, the days of sort of having private label products being merely what we call a substandard copy version of a brand product is over. Okay. Overall, I think consumers are well informed and more demanding and seek highest possible quality in their products. And what we are seeing through, I think, the market here in the UK and Europe is the millennials are becoming a more important segment, and they demand things like more healthy, more innovative, sustainable products, and also looking for convenience in this COVID era. And what we see is through innovation, private labels are beginning to become a brand in their own right. You can see examples like innovation in product trends like vegan, plant-based ranges of products in the UK and the US, where it's a testament to private brands sort of filling a gap quickly to respond to the consumer market and then becoming a brand of its own to fill that gap in that space. And also, if you look at it from slightly from a consumer end, I think more and more majority of consumers are looking for brands that provide products with health and wellness benefit, offer what we call clean products, environmentally responsible, use of that use natural or organic ingredients, and are sustainable. And these consumers usually fall what we call in the category of what we call purpose-driven consumers, which make 50% of the market, with the other 50% being almost the value or cost-driven consumers.
Got it. Lovely. That's a perspective. Sunil, let me come to you. I mean, you are in a sweet spot, private ho, public ho, big brands, small brands, you supply to all. But what I wanted to ask you was, in your experience, when you are approached by a private brand or a small brand, let's say, and you're approached by a large brand, is there a difference in approaches? Do people approach you with different briefs? Do they approach you with different problem statements? And how do you deal with that situation at your end to make sure that everyone is satisfied? Because you also must be having issues around IP and about confidentiality and about, and just business propriety.
I'll give you an example of a small brand just came in, and they wanted a whole range of products which are biodegradable, which are clean, which are sustainable. And then there was a brief from a bath and body kind of brand, and they wanted paraben-free, sulfate-free. So everything is going, to the small end brands and niche brands to be sustainable, like Bobby said. People, want something which is there with a purpose. The big brands, it's always price, and price. So we compensate that by big volumes. So because we make big volumes, we have very, very less overheads. And then, we come up with, our chemicals. So I'm a chemical engineer.
Yes, of course.
We have more than 150 chemical engineers in the company. So we have our own 40 scientists working, and we work with the brands to help cut cost, but not the quality. So, we work with cutting edge new surfactants because traditionally the industry is based on formulas which they got from, say, Unilever or some from other brands, and they are based on LAPSA or SLA as the surfactants. And there are a whole range of new biodegradable surfactants, which may be per kilo expensive, but it works out much cheaper when it comes to the usage. So we explained, to the brands that you can replace this and you can come up with something new, and would be good for the planet Earth. And our ODM model, where we say we have our own design and we collaborate with the retailers. So the example, one of the example was IFB, and they told us they want something which is 50% stronger than Surf Excel, cheaper. It should be good for even a newborn baby's clothes. It should be neutral. It should have biodegradability, and all of these they wanted at a particular price. And we could work with them, and today it's a very good success. So we are working on dishwashing tablets. So what we do is we come up with new variants now, and board is shifting to dishwashers now. For example, now I'm washing utensils at home now, so in the lockdown, so I'm understanding how it's easy to for example, we have Indian tea. We make utensils in the home with milk and sugar and the tea and the water together, and deposit inside of the utensil. And now it's not very easy to clean that, when you do it with one hand.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We have special surfactants now, which you're working on, which could do the cleaning much easier. It could be like just a wipe and it gets cleaned faster. So I did it. I'm using that at home. And if you see my shirt here, so this is nearly a two-year-old shirt. Now a shirt should look white. Now traditionally, one product fits all in a detergent, and the detergent has a little amount of optical brightener or a bleach. But if it is a product specific for white shirts, then you can have a detergent which could give fantastic whiteness with the shirts, and doesn't cause any damage to the colored clothes, but specific for white clothes.
So that's very interesting. So you are saying that people are now looking for unique niches, and they don't necessarily are the big players, because those people look for volume, but there are many, and therefore even private brands will move up that ladder very shortly and satisfy needs, not because of a price point or because of a consumption gap, but because of an elevated need from a consumer, which from a country point of view, the market may be too small for a large player to make, but from a retailer's point of view, their analytics might show that there are enough consumers consuming that product. So I think that's a fantastic insight.
So Vim, for example, Vims we do thousands of tons of Vims in a year. But now there is understanding that there is some part of India where there's a lot of hard water, and
yes,
the normal dishwash detergent does not work in hot water, and these are places where there's boring water in Gujarat, or where the TDS is more than 1,000. And we're working on special surfactants where we could have the same kind of cleaning, the same kind of foam, and the same kind of effect.
Correct.
So these are areas where we work and help the private brands to become better, and that is the customers.
Excellent. Saurabh, do I start with questions now? Because there are some very interesting questions which have come, or would you like to inaugurate the...
let the flow go on, then later.
Okay, excellent. So there are two contrasting questions. One for the people from FMCG, and that is, how does FMCG companies deal if retailers push too much of their private label on shelf space? Is there somewhere threat to their market share? If not now, maybe at some point in time in the future. So that's a question from KS to all the panelists. So between Deepak and Pankaj, both of you all can answer it. I'm happy to.
My answer is very simple. If our product is good, it will sell. So if their product is good, it will sell. They have the platform to sell it. We pay for that platform. So make better products. We have only one single straightforward theme. Keep making better products, keep getting those expectations right. And as I said earlier, brand is made by the consumer, and two elements over there, repeatability and availability. So we believe in repeatability of quality, and some of the partners are right here on the panel as well. They help us with that. We've got our own manufacturing sites. We've got people who leave our manufacturing and join somewhere else. But that thing to make that product, that parachute blue bottle also, if I want to take an example, we know how to do it.
Excellent. What about you, Deepak?
Yeah, same. So taste, trust, and purity is what we have been trying to put in the mind of the consumer for years now. And Nilon se to acha hai. So whatever they are buying is acha can be taste, trust, and purity. Acha has all the three aspects to it. So that has been a significant effort that we have tried to do. And yes, so private label will be there, but again, a private label has a limited bandwidth, meaning they are trying to, own brands are going to sell in their own stores. And we are, India being a significantly mom and pop store still driven with over 10 million retail outlets present. There's a huge amount of covering that comes from the general trade, and where there is the brand presence becomes very, very strong, very popular. And if we keep believing in this taste, trust, and purity as a company, I think we create a very strong brand franchise for us on. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Now the reverse question, which has been asked. So I don't think these two people are talking to each other, but they have asked the contrasting question, which is, how do private labels compete with established brands which have already built customer equity? Does this mean huge marketing expense? And how do you all see that shift? So over to the retailers now.
I'm happy to go first. So if I could just dovetail into what Deepak and Pankaj were saying, and then probably come to this place. So you see, for a retailer, one has to keep in mind that a private label is just like any other brand, or a Gophers brand today for me is just like any other brand, right? As a retailer, my essential priority number one is, how do I optimize sales per square foot? So if I have 1 square feet of space, what is the profit I make out of that? Now by selling, again, we were talking ketchup, so I'll just stick to that example. If by selling 100 bottles of Kisan, I make 5 rupees on each bottle, and now I'm talking virtual space because we're in the e-commerce space, right? So by selling 100 bottles, I make 5 rupees, that's 500 bucks. Versus if I was to sell, make 10 rupees on a own brand, but I sell only 5 bottles, that's like 50 bucks, right? So, from a retailer's perspective, we are very clear that own brands is different from a retail business, and we don't tend to merge the two together. We keep them separate because our business is retailing, and own brands is just a key part of that strategy, right? So, in my mind, I think the conflict is a healthy conflict, where it kind of there's a cooperation between the two, where both complement each other well, and there has to be a healthy balance maintained, as I said, through the life cycle of the retail. That's one. Coming to how do you? I mean, at least on the e-platforms, our strategy is never about cannibalizing my existing brands. That would be the wrong strategy. Like I said, it's about sales per square foot, right? So if I start to say that, okay, I know everybody who buys Kisan now, let me go and push my own brand to them, that would be a flawed strategy. In the short term, it may work, but in the long term, I'm losing money, right, on that strategy. So that will not be the strategy. So, the development opportunity is really around data, and to look at that data and say, what is the segment that I am not serving? What is the customer taste that I am not serving? What is the opportunity that I am not serving right now as a retailer that perhaps this brand is not allowing? Like, for example, Maggi, just to put a number out there. Maggi is Maggi. I know there are rival products and rival companies, but Maggi is serving an opportunity which is pretty well served today. Having said that, there could be another segment, like, for example, diapers. Saurabh did a great job when he was with us around diapers. A lot of people told us that, Pampers and Huggies and Mama Poco, they're all in the market. There is no space. But there was space. We found there was space, and we went in there, and today on our platform, our own diapers are double-digit share, right? Which is significant. So I think there is enough opportunity, and the way you have to do this is through new methodologies, new ways. Data is the new oil, that's what everybody says. And it's about looking at that data and saying, okay, what am I not ready? And then how do I go position myself against that audience? Do you need, millions of dollars? No. The answer is no, you don't. You need to understand your customer better. You need the right product fit, and then you need to go out there and position it well.
Lovely. Vishal, any views?
So I agree with Vikram and as well as Pankaj when he was talking about today. From when you are a retailer, you can't any retailer. It will be basically signing his own debt warrant if he says, "I will go and fight with brands or I will push my own brands first and won't sell the national brands." Because today consumer comes to you because of those brands, because of the availability. Today e-commerce as a platform today is growing and surviving because you are able to offer a range. Now when you offer a range, you can't say I will not sell X or Y or Z, and your objective is to provide whatever consumers seek. And when you are working towards that objective and continuously trying, and if you're not creating your products which are only sold on price, because there is no end to this thing. Someone is selling at 100, you can keep going and you keep fighting. So I personally think there is no fight between brands and private brands. It is together we are building a much larger category, which is more people you can actually service, and you can create multiple levels of product categories where brand is also healthy, growing in a healthy way, and your private brands are also. So no matter, I think ever there will be a fight or brands or retailers will throw out FMCG companies and all that, because we are still in India, and whatever brands today national we are talking, they have a legacy. They have a legacy of years and years and years. If we talk about even Ashirwad Atta today, there are plenty of atta, but it is still the largest. And before that, there was a Shakti Bhog atta, which was again large, but Ashirwad came up with a much better product and built it over years. And today, same thing private brands are also doing. So I'm saying this is too early. I don't think so. There is a right now, anyone can be a Trader's Joe in India and say, I will sell only my products.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Kamal, I want to come to you with this. So in the future group, you've got private brands, but they are brands in their own right. How do you all see that working as compared to what others do with private brand, where the retailer's name is very prominent on the product? How do you see that differently, from a strategic point of view?
So, first I'll try to answer the second point,
Yes.
which is about what if the retailer's brand name is not present.
Right.
So, we have various formats, Easy Day, Heritage, Big Bazaar, Hypercity, and Food Hall also. And, we cover various segments of customers. So our format name is not essential to positioning a brand, and not having a format name or retailer's name on a brand helps us of multiple formats. There are 5, 6.
Good point.
But beyond that, it is just incidental. From the very inception, what we believed was that because these are not private labels but own brands. That's what we called these as since the inception. They have to be really treated like brands. They have to be positioned as having certain value for the consumer, and they have to be as Pedro had said, that every brand has a story and experience. So we looked at our journey of own brands in a similar way. So we have extreme value brands like Tasty Treat, which stand for taste but value, and we have created brands in home care which are only about value. But we have also created a new age brand like Voom, which is about taking care of clothes, which is a great innovation and a leader in category today. So whatever we have been talking about, it is largely, as everybody said, about customer data, understanding customer journey, understanding where are the gaps in the market. So like we see in classical marketing, either you are able to differentiate, or you are able to provide value to the customer through price leadership, or you are able to fill availability gap through innovation, or pure distribution. So wherever own brands are doing all three, they win. And you need all these brands because you are not getting one set of customers, and they are not particularly we have seen they are not particularly attached to a particular store name. Just as they pick Red Label in your store, they might, pick up your brand, which they don't even know belongs to,
The
the
chain.
retailer. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much. Pedro, coming to you, I'm conscious of the fact that in our audience who's listening and viewing us, there may be manufacturers or people who want to launch their own product categories. So when you're consulting, on one side, you're talking obviously to the seller, but you must be also looking at where these things are made. What would your sort of advice be to people who want to start out and venture into manufacturing and therefore launching their own private brands, as it were? What kind of advice would you be giving them? Because there are a few questions around this which have been coming in.
So, when you have a factory, you need to use it. First of all, and you need to use it to its full capacity. So it is your objective and it is your goal to understand and to create value with what you have. If you are going to become a pure private label player, you need to understand retailers' needs. So you need to be flexible. You need to have your mindset very clear to have speed to shelf, to be ready, and to have a set of processes internally that allows you to answer the retailer's requests. Retailers ask a lot from the manufacturing community. They ask a lot, they demand a lot, but it's part of the game. So there's no point on fighting that position because the retailers already understood that by having very well developed private labels that answer a set of needs, sustainability, eco-friendly, clean label, whatever the demand is over there, the manufacturers that want to grow with that, they need to collaborate. And they need to be open to have organizations that are flexible enough and understand the process so that they can indeed embrace that opportunity and grow in a space. Sometimes it's much easier route for a manufacturer to grow side by side with a retailer partnership. Of course, partnership is a very holistic concept. There are very good partnerships, very partnerships that are only as a concept, and in reality they do not exist. But manufacturers that want to embrace the private label, they need to understand that it's a slightly different game. It needs to be fast. Retailers own the shelf space. If retailers think that they found the need to offer a different product to their consumer base, they want that product in 6 months, in 9 months, and they want it ready, tested, with a very nice looking packaging and available and constantly available. And that's the type of perspective that manufacturers need to have regarding private label. Private label is not here to ruin their business if they have a brand already. Private label here is here, like Vishal said, to grow the category. And that's a very relevant point. So retail is retail, it's a business, it needs to generate profit, and private label is also part of it. But it's not going to fight head to head with existing brands. It's going to aim to increase the category. And how does that category is increased? Because retailers understand the data. They understand what is there and what they feel could be a very good product for their consumers. They can launch it. They own the shelf space. And then, of course, if that product does not work, they can sit down with manufacturers and say, look, let's do a different and improved version. Let's try to shift some stuff. So that flexibility is what will allow manufacturers to grow really well with retailers and with private label. And I think that's something that manufacturers need to look at, because if they do not do it, someone else will do it. So that's a key starting point for every player in the industry. Of course, there are different strategies. There are companies that do not want to enter the private label space. To be honest, under my experience, I've crossed with some of them some years ago, but 5 years ahead, I understood that I would say 90% of them are already embracing it because they need to defend themselves also. Yeah.
Excellent. Bobby, would you like to add to that? Any piece of advice to... Bobby, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just saw a related question on technology as well as how the collaboration would work with sort of the manufacturing community focused on private label and retailers. What we see is as retailers sort of create more complex and innovative products, they tend to sort of work very closely, as Pedro mentioned, with their suppliers. They almost become like partners for the innovation. There is a lot of investment that is put by the retailers on the manufacturers as they develop new products. And they like to keep it close and have a smaller base when it comes to innovating rather than switching a lot of suppliers. We do see a lot of close working relationship, and that's going to be true in terms of the new trends of sustainable, environmentally responsible products too, where manufacturers need to have that thinking in order to sort of approach the new age retailers so that they can offer their value and work collaboratively with the retailers.
Excellent. So now, Saurabh, I'll have one last question, which I will address only to Sunil because I want him to play referee for everybody. Sunil, what do you think is the impact of COVID and the entire customer sentiment on this whole private brands versus national brands sort of outlook from a consumer point of view?
The entire focus has shifted to health and hygiene.
Okay.
And everyone is only talking about health and hygiene. So if you want a dishwash, it has to be antimicrobial, antiviral. You want a hand wash, you want a detergent, so you want a fabric sanitizer. So everything is relating to now, getting products which could appeal to the consumer because the consumer is worried about his health and hygiene.
That's why Pankaj is also smiling now.
So our sanitizer sales boomed. It is so practically every brand we made.
No, that of course.
Yeah, so that is one part. But fabric sanitizer, dishwash, everything is, and you need a private label manufacturer who can just do the formulation overnight. You cannot wait 3 months for a formulation to come online. So the private brands want immediate, and people like us innovate. Now is the demand for a powder kind of hand wash, which you take a sachet, put in a 200 ml bottle, and then the transport big amount of water. So it will shift to concentrates now. It will shift to more hygiene related. It will shift to more sustainable and green and biodegradable, organic, and vegan is now something which is also coming of age here in India. So some brands now are asking even a dishwash or hand wash which is vegan.
Lovely. So any last thoughts before I hand over to Saurabh? Saurabh, I think we've had an enriching, but if anyone has any last point of view, please quickly rapid fire into Saurabh, or we'll hand it over to him for the launch of the magazine. Anyone? Okay, then thank you very much for a very, very exciting and very, very interesting panel discussion, full of content and full of practical realities and a way forward. And I'm sure that the audience, I certainly have learned a lot, and I'm sure that the audience too has gained a lot out of it. And I'm sure the panelists have also learned a lot from each other into the way things are going to shape up in the future. So thanks once again, everybody, and over to you, Saurabh.
Thanks, Shamshed. Thanks to all the panelists out there. And now, as I would say, JD disowned the launch because of technical glitch. So I would request that if Minesh can share the screen and make the magazine live, we can just have a glimpse of it. Would request, of course, to all the panelists to share a one-liner or a thought about how the thing has come out. That will make or break our work, which we are doing. Yeah. Minesh, over to you.
Minesh, if you could just share the screen.
Oh.
Yeah, guys. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, thank you to all the panelists for taking the time out from your busy schedule and joining us for this extremely amazing event for us, our launch. On your screen that you rightly see is the launch of the e-magazine, which is the first edition of the World of Own Brands. Dinesh, if you can just flip it over. So the magazine will kind of talk about the supplier point of view. We'll talk about the retailer point of view from the online retailers, brand owners, offline retailers, and the supply chain, warehousing, storage perspective. So it's going to cover A to Z of the entire value chain related to the own brand and the private label industry. Just flip it over, Manish. So the four major areas that we are going to cover is the food segment, which includes food and beverage, non-food, packaging, and private label development. So the respected panelists who have joined us are from all of these diverse backgrounds and have lots of stories to share in future editions about your expertise in the relevant fields. So this is just a launch issue like Saurabh mentioned. We'll be, the issue is already live on the website. So to all our attendees and the panelists, we'll be sharing a link of this magazine to you shortly. And you can also view this online on the website at whoop.in. So without much ado, I will once again thank each and everyone for taking the time out and joining us for this. And you can share your thoughts on what you see, the first look of this magazine that you can see, sir.
I think you all need a round of applause for the magazine.
Thank you.
To all the panelists and to attendees, there's one commitment which we as a Whoop team have made is that be it content, be it partnership, be it sponsorship, as far as we are going to deal with, we are going to deal only with SMEs and MSME players going forward, because we are there to assist them and them only as a platform, because the brands have got a leeway. But in fact, big brands like Marico, if they have got a manufacturing facility, they can extend a hand to Chotu brand players or local brand players in extending their manufacturing facilities to them if they have got capacities left. Yeah. But it's more to do with, again, what the jargon is floating around. I would say it's really true, local to vocal. But today, what it has come is, and which we in fact released our press release yesterday, which we talked about it, and PM spoke about it today in Independence Day parade. Make to global. So make in India has now moved to make to global. So whatever the local brands do, it has to now move out to other countries. And that's what we hope that we are able to do, at least with few brands in coming in near future. And that's what it is. And I would extend thanks to all the panelists, thanks to all the attendees, and of course, thanks to all the sponsors who quickly came to our, I won't say rescue, but to our support. And to our rescue, definitely one gentleman came in, was Mr. Jamshed Dabu. Thanks to him. Vikram, special thanks to him, because when I was moving out of Grofers, he was the first one to say that, boss, whenever you need help, I am a call away. KD has always been an inspiration. Pedro and Pankaj was my co-panelist in CMPL. So I shouldn't say that I fell in love with him for his smile, but the way he articulated the things is amazing. Yeah. Vishal, I have been observing, and Deepak Sangvi as a person, as a businessman, a very shrewd guy. I love him. And Mr. Sunil Cherry, the way he behaves on LinkedIn with us, interact with our post, I just love that man. Such a humble, big man, a chemical man, I would say. So thank you all, guys. Thanks to you. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for shouldering our small effort. We hope to stay in touch with you. We would require your mentoring, continuous mentoring, going on. JD, especially you, Vikram, Deepak, and Cherry sir. And thank you all, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you, Jamshed, for a nice session.
Thank you, guys.